the 23C15, lights out on yield. That one goes across all of Cornelius country, whether it's Illinois to Iowa and west. It's built for all of it, and the yields are amazing. So if you're doing non-GMO beans, you really need to have that 2-3, no matter if you're pushing southern Minnesota or if you're down on I-80. That's something you probably need to have.
Welcome back to the Cornelius Seed podcast. This is Juan, and today I am joined by a duo of owners. We've got James Cornelius and Will Cornelius joining me today. And one of the reasons why we wanted to bring both of them together is because a lot of folks know that we've got elite traits and genetics when it comes to both platforms. But something that we've discovered a lot of folks is new to them is how deep our portfolio is for both soybean and corn as it comes to non-GMO conventional corn and soybeans, as well as some organic offerings. So by request of several of our growers, they just said, hey, can you guys hop on and just talk about what are we offering? And so that's what we're going to do here today. So welcome, gentlemen. How are we doing?
Doing good.
Doing well. Spent the morning learning about new technologies in the precision plant world. So be interesting to see how those work out into people's operation.
That'll be neat. But well, I guess we can just kind of get going here. We've all seen 2026 budget projections from the universities on what that break-even point looks like for folks, and really we realize that every dollar on that seed bill needs to justify its existence. So today when we look at our seed portfolio, I want to think about it how we're approaching it from like a body armor of traits. For one field and a margin boost for another. And so with that rant there, sometimes it feels like folks are, when margins are tight, we want to pivot to, all right, where can we cut, which is natural and it should be. And so conventional, with it being a different pricing structure, folks are seeing that as a budget move. What are you guys' thoughts on that? Is it just a budget move, or is there a real genetic engine under that hood?
Well, I think in general, actually, this morning we had a long-term seed rep who was at the same meeting, and he was asking the question of thought about switching to conventional. And sometimes when I'm talking to people my age or younger, it's a lot more of a conversation about, hey, let's make sure we're talking about all the different things that you're going to need that you didn't have to do while you had traits helping protect your seed, and that's the extra scouting, the loss of Liberty or Roundup as a rescue herbicide treatment. A lot of times people say they don't necessarily need those to get by, but not being able to use them if you want to is another thing. But at the end of the day, the conventional hybrids and organic is the same. They have very good genetic chassis underneath them. They have very high yield potential. I think a lot of times it really comes down to your farming operation, how it can fit into that, and which avenue is better for you.
Will, JC brings a fantastic point on there, right? And there's definitely some strong genetics in that space. What are your thoughts on as it relates to the soybean world and specifically organics there?
Yeah, I mean, and certainly he's right. It's similar conversation in soybeans. Do you need those herbicides or not? I mean, if we're talking about controlling grass and beans, that's not a big deal usually. But we all know that water hemp's our biggest issue in most of our sales footprint. So not having a dicamba or a 2,4-D is certainly something to keep in mind. You may have to go to more mechanical tillage or some sort of weed tiner, something like that, if you're really going to get serious about it, especially if we're talking organic. You really have to go multiple passes, take care of those weeds while they're small, and really do a lot more scouting than you do have to with those rescue herbicides. So it's a very similar conversation, I think, in soybeans.
So, I mean, I'm hearing you guys saying really the key thing to that, it isn't about a budget move. It's a management move as well, right? And I'm guessing not every field is going to be the same either in that approach.
Well, it's certainly both. I mean, it's a budget move in that, yeah, you do have less dollars going out the door for seed input, but is that balanced off with less, or where how much more herbicide are you going to have? Where do you value your time for scouting? Who's doing that scouting? So those all need to be taken into account in the grand scheme of things. But at the end of the day, if we can raise more bushels, that's going to help the bottom line too.
Tell us, if you will, like from our lineup and our portfolio, what are some of those key varieties that you're looking at, or some of those traits as you're picking what's out there? Either one of you.
Yeah, I think really a lot of times on the corn side there is a yin and a yang to height of a plant, right? We traditionally try to make sure and keep a moderate stature plants in our lineup, albeit there's always some really high yielding things that can still stand being tall. A lot of times, really picking the hybrids that have a lot of extra vigor getting out of the ground. Some of the hybrids we've been bringing out recently have a lot wider leaf structure, just being more of a shade to the ground. And at the end of the day, the conversation of going to conventional as compared, conventional methods are just non-traded, and selling regular corn into the markets is a completely different mathematical equation than going into the organic market as far as your payments, or if you're getting a non-GMO premium. But there's customers that are doing that and deciding that they can manage the scouting of the insects, the scouting and manage the weeds in different ways than needing Roundup or Liberty. In a lot of places, I think Roundup kills anymore is some grass. So as far as the corn size goes, yes, I mean, definitely getting out of the ground, getting going to have the canopy. But I think the other thing is just if you're going to be in certain situations, say long-term corn on corn where you need rootworm protection, then realistically, the non-GMO is probably not your best.
It makes sense. And now as you mentioned, that is one of the things that I hear you guys talk about all the time is on like the product trainings is, it's all about the pressure, right? So if you've got some easy and moderate and severe pressure, and you're approaching it from a lot of different ways. And I think here recently, one of the cool ways is the planter box options, especially for folks that don't have a liquid system. And there's I'm probably getting a little bit ahead, and that's something we're gonna touch base on how that can help. Will, any thoughts on that, or any input from the soybean world?
Well, and that's where my head was going too, is the power that's in those pails to help you get the beans out of the ground, get the corn out of the ground, get a quicker vegetative growth going so you can get that canopy quicker and prevent weeds. I mean, certainly the ether product that we have does help do that. We've seen that time after time. That's very consistently proven that it's going to help you get. So I think if you're going to go away from traits, certainly looking at some of these Pail products is going to help you too. And then you're also gaining more than you lost with traits. With losing traits, you lose your herbicide or your insect protection possibly, but with the Pails, you pick up micros and you can still get CRW and you can still get plenty of things. But back to specifically to the soybeans, most of them come out of the ground really well. And I think our 93% germination certainly helps that also, because we got more beans coming out of the ground. And that's one of the things we pride our brand on, is high quality seed that pops out of the ground, both corn and soybeans.
I think, thank you for mentioning the 93%, because someone asked that recently and assumed it was just for the traded soybeans that are going out the door, whether it's the Extend Flex or the Enlist E3 platform, and you're holding those same standards for organic and conventional non-GMO soybeans, obviously where it's possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And this year our seed quality is great. We don't think anything will have to be marked lower than that. Rarely do we have that happen. And it looks like this year everything will be 93 or well above, regardless of it's Enlist, Extend Flex, or conventional or organic. They're all really good.
So how do you guys, another kind of interesting way, I enjoyed talking to both of you on this, is not only are you guys involved in the product selection of what's getting offered out there, but you're also responsible at different capacities for managing the direction of how we support our folks. What type of support do you guys see, whether it's to the team or to a grower, that you like to make sure we execute as a company?
I think at the end of the day, making sure that our entire team, anyone customer facing, has the ability, if they're involved in the process of providing products selection, knowing where those products go. I think the other thing that we always need to mention is our custom box sizes for corn, and the fact that we see it very, very important to put the right product on the right acre. And unless you only have 117 acre fields out there, it's pretty hard to do with 34,000 population and 50 unit boxes. So really making sure that you put the right hybrid on the right acre, and empowering our team to help give those recommendations, whether that be the DSMs or the seed reps. We've shaken up our entire testing protocol to be more specific to being able to do that and get data across our entire lineup, checks in the industry, as well as some experimentals that we're looking at for the future. So really just making sure we can provide where the products work best and make sure that they're putting the stuff on the right acre.
I would just add to that two other things. One is we are testing these conventionals. You talk about data and plots and proven, and we're putting these out there in yield trials too, right along with the traded stuff, and in our profit plots as well. So we've got multiple, and then we do some third-party trialing as well that has the conventionals in it. So very thoroughly tested. The other thing I think you get from Cornelius, because we've been an independent company and have always had non-GMO as part of our lineup, where a lot of the bigger companies kind of went away from them, we have long-term customers that have been doing non-GMO or conventional for a long time. And our DSMs and our seed reps are pretty versed in that. So if you're like, hey, this is something I want to try, and you're not sure where to go or you have questions, reach out to your DSM. And if they don't know the answer, there's a good chance one of our other DSMs do, because some of these guys are pretty darn versed at it. So it's not hard to network and get some answers pretty quick.
That's absolutely true. And I had one of the, Mark Todd out of Illinois, he mentioned that when we had him on here recently, he said he likes to connect growers together. He goes, his footprint is wide enough that he loves to do that, because we learn a lot from each other. And we see this at any of the post-harvest meetings or grower meetings we do, is trying to get the chatter back down, because everyone enjoys having conversations so much with each other about what they're doing and what's working and what's not. And Will, you mentioned the Pail, and I kind of want to circle it back to that as well. Let's bring it back to that and how our Pails help out and how that's managed, if you will, please.
Yeah, I think when you look at this, we always need to remember about and keeping, rather than save your way to prosperity, make sure that, yes, there is a way to cut costs, but at the same point in time, you might reduce your income more than you're saving on your expenses. So really one aspect there right now is nitrogen prices are through the roof, and we kind of mentioned the meristem stuff here, but Pivot Bio, we still have plenty of supply, been able to treat the seed with that, getting you some more nitrogen credits there in times when basically nitrogen's been the highest it's probably ever going to be for the spring in recent times. But back to the Pails and the rootworm. I mean, right now we have the Gardex part of the Pails, which is powered by TS201, and that will not replace a Smart Stack Pro in a heavy situation. But can it replace a granular insecticide? Yes. Can it replace a VT4, potentially, just a lesser rootworm product on the extended diapause or the variants, so you're dealing with rootworms after soybean crops? Yes. Those are great opportunities there. So realistically, when you put some of those costs into it, you're not necessarily saving all the way back to cutting off all the costs, but you reinvest some of the money back into another product, which can give you a happy medium and still give you protections that you wouldn't already have. PreFight is another one as far as crown rot protection, keeping the roots of the corn healthy. That also works on, there's portions of the soybean pails that do the same thing. I think at the end of the day, our soybean and corn seed treatments that we put on the corn seed and soybean seed itself is still really your best bet to get the base covered, because all those AIs will be there working. The thing that the biologicals can do is add to longer protection once those synthetics have kind of been used up after about 30, 40 days, and maybe so the biologicals can continue on. And the other thing, the reason that the Gardex works is it blocks the rootworm from sensing where the roots are. I mean, they're sitting there underground. They obviously can't see the roots. They have to sense towards them, and it keeps them from getting there. So in super heavy pressures, they're still going to, blind squirrel is still find a nut, right? Whereas they also has found, they've gotten a new label for that to maybe have some protection above ground, which means that those organisms are actually growing with the plant, getting up above the ground if it's going to be above ground insect control. But the other thing it does is it just stimulates plant growth or root growth. So a lot of times if you do get nibbled by some rootworm, it helps regrowth new roots and continues on to get you more. Ironically, there was a part of the precision dealer that was there. They work with Maximum Farming, and they had a individual gave a testimonial, and it was either last year or the year before, they won the National Corn Growers Association in the area here. And his comment was along the lines of, well, I decided not to spend the money on putting this extra pass and this extra product on all my acres, and I just did it on my corn growers contest acres. And his response was, well, the reality is me not putting on that cost me about $135,000 because the yield increase that extra investment did more than offset all the cost and then resulted in him getting more yield. And I think that's the thing as we come out of this past year and realizing that those who decided to save on the fungicide pass because they didn't want any more expenses go out, and then all of a sudden you saw 20, 30, 40, 70 bushel differences. I mean, that's real. That pays for the next 5 years of the product, if you will, right? It makes the difference between being profitable for another year and not. So yes, there's always ways to reduce input costs, but let's always make sure that the downside risk of those cost savings isn't too great.
Absolutely. That's a super cool story. And I think that the TS201, which is found in Gardex, this was new to me. I didn't realize, I'm sure you guys had already known, was that it was, one of the first biodefense insecticides registered with the EPA, right? And as it comes to those pails, that's the whole delivery system where you pop the top down and you can kind of mix and match a lot of things based off what you need, whether it's feed, and you've got the option of root regeneration that comes with it. On this, are these approved to be used in the organic space? Do you guys know what that's like? I'm sure that's a question that folks probably ask.
I think that's a very complex world. The organic world is its own kind of being, if you will. There's multiple different certifying agencies, and all of them do things in slightly different manners. And then even in some of those different certifiers in different areas, are more okay with different things. And some of that goes back to just simply the pest pressure in the woods. There are individual components of these pails that are OMRI approved with restrictions. So you basically got to prove that you're trying to do things without getting it. Getting them approved outright on them, we've had some pretty difficulty getting them approved on. There might be a way to get some of this stuff on its own. But the reality is the cool thing about the pails is, yes, it's easier to keep the stuff alive longer, get it so it's actually living when it's on your seed in the soil. And the other thing is, we talked about the two defensive things here, the TS201 and the PreFight, which I believe have some really good options. The other thing is when you look at different soil types and different farming operations, that's when you decide, okay, which pail do I want? And honestly, sometimes it gets more complex because there's plenty of options, but it really lets you focus it on, again, by field and your farming operation. So some of the soils around here have some really tougher eroded soils. So in that case, adding those biofertility microbes and some of the other stuff really makes a difference because the soil's kind of dead. The side hill seeps and something like that. If it's too wet at the end of the day, you probably just got to make sure and get it tiled. But just some of the stuff that's been eroded and has gotten fixed and dried out, but doesn't have the organic matter, more of those biofertilities can make a difference. But when we're also going into the high organic matters, the 3s, the 5s, whatever, good black dirt that's well drained. I mean, I think that's where a lot of these protecting side is really going to make a big difference because there's more disease pressure a lot of times in those areas anyway. Especially if it's not as well drained. So lots of options there to evaluate. And again, just get that extra protection for the extra bushels because as I've always been told, and by Dad and fully understand the easiest way to reduce your cost per bushel is to get more bushels.
That's true. And Will, would you put any of that on your farm?
Yeah, absolutely. He's not kidding about the highly eroded soils around here. I mean, we're in bluff country and we put the Pail on all of our soybean acres last year and we had our best yields ever. I mean, I don't know if that's all because of that, but I sure don't think it hurt.
Yeah, our uncle and cousin, they've been using the Pivot Bio product for 3 years now, and have tried a few of the Pails and whatnot. But the Pivot Bio and reduction of 40 units is working on their operation because for a couple years running, they've had their highest enterprise yields. So we definitely have perfect examples where you can reduce some nitrogen with Pivot and still get even better yields yet, which leads me into the Gen 3 products that's coming out and has some of has some additional microbes in it to help with root growth and nutrient availability. And I think it's really just going to help set off that product and even do more. And there's certain pails that really mesh right into that. So you can overlap the microbes in each and not double dip and spend the money twice.
Mm-hmm. Well, James, thank you for that. That is a fantastic point. You know, you're getting coverage from even our base treatment options that work. And then you were talking about planter box opportunities, whether it's a feed or an insecticide. Pivot Bio, whether we're putting it on the seed for customers in custom boxes as well, which is awesome. And then on top of all that, then you also have offerings of if you need untreated conventional and you get your order in early, right, with planning, we can work with you too. So lots of different ways, lots of different operations, but we've hit corn pretty good, and we've kind of talked about bean some and what we're offering. But Will, if you will, let's kind of talk about that lineup a little bit out there.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked because, you know, we're in the middle of draft season, as you and Craig have talked about and JC in the past for corn. I mean, I'm drafting new soybeans right now onto our soybean team, and it's kind of fun. I get to do it for the traded stuff and in the conventionals. It's almost a whole nother world because there's additional suppliers we can tap, being independent, and you know, the over the last couple of years, I didn't know what I didn't know, and I'm getting there, and we found some pretty excellent stuff. You know, whether it's coming from right here in Iowa, from Iowa State with our 1.9, that one's been awesome for an early bean, and it comes south well. And the cool thing about that is it has just enough protein that you can hit some food grade markets too if you get the right buyer. So that one's been pretty appealing from that perspective. And the one that just blew me away a year ago, and I wish I would have had it sooner, but it was kind of a supplier that we found a little later in the game, and I got just enough to get a production field, but didn't get it into trials, is our 2-3, the 23C15, lights out on yield. You know, and that one goes across all of Cornelius country, whether it's Illinois to Iowa and west. It's built for all of it, and the yields are amazing. So if you're doing non-GMO beans, you really need to have that 2-3, no matter if you're pushing southern Minnesota or if you're down on I-80. That's something you probably need to have. And talking about the draft, I'm bringing out a new 2.5 for next year to replace our 25 C10. And then there's a 2.7 and a 2.9 I'm taking a pretty serious look at too. So there's some pretty exciting stuff there. And we're still partnering with Illini on some of the Group 3 stuff. That's where their real strength is. But we found we needed some additional Group 2s, and it's been fun having enough volume to add to the lineup as this portfolio continues to grow.
That is pretty cool because you're hitting, and I'm going through and just even looking at our website and encourage folks to check out you know, plot data, and you know, it's not very often that folks are putting conventional non-GMO options out there into the trials. JC, is there any kind of heavy hitters that you like out there right now?
Yeah, I think we got some great supplies for organic corns. You know, 5917, 6523, 6900 are all sitting extremely well. And another thing out there is, as far as the untreated conventionals, 6749. Still got a great supply, 5917 as a conventional, 7164, and quite a bit more hybrids out there. in the treated, if we can treat a conventional space. Lots of options there. I think at the end of the day, some cool things that we're bringing out is we will have a couple new conventionals all the way up and down the lineup. But another thing we're looking at doing is expanding our early day set to get even earlier, 90-day, maybe even an 85-day conventional, and then a traded product in both those as well. So being able to move a little farther north in certain geographies, it's pretty exciting times to be able to, like Will said, be able to expand your footprint.
If we could, what's the number one mistake that either of you guys see folks making when it's their first time moving from a traded platform to a conventional one?
Well, I mean, just circling back to kind of where we started, it's just a mind shift in scouting. Not to say it's a completely different world, but you just need to stay on top of it and really know your chemistries as well, what you can and can't do, and just be a little more active manager than we've been allowed to be because of the rescue treatments.
I would more than double down on the scouting. Too many times have I heard individuals who decided to go conventional and think, okay, well, yep, we're good, or I scouted it once, we're good. Like, no, those traits give you long-term protection, especially the above grounds, pretty much all season control. The same when I talked to this gentleman this morning about his conversation about whether or not maybe you should switch some to conventional rather than traded. And I was like, well, talking with you've spent quite a bit of your life back in the day of planting conventional corn. So you know what it was like and know how much you have to scout and whatnot. So that's a different story than somebody who's never, I mean, like I said, my age and younger, I mean, we've not known a real production world without the traits unless you've already done it. And many a times we've seen people go to it and go right back to traits because they didn't have a good experience. But I really would suggest if you're going to do it in a small way to start with, maybe a couple fields next to your home operation that you drive by every day. So if you see something going on, definitely don't put it in the 60-acre field 15 miles away because it's Uncle Jed's and that you just farm it because it's family, and otherwise it's probably too far away. I mean, you will have a problem more than likely if that's the case. But definitely something to have the conversation, and at the end of the day, yeah, just always remember that those traits do cost money, but there is significant benefit to them, especially in certain times and certain years.
I like that. I've been trying to get this to kick off, but it really just doesn't flow off the tongue well, which is plan your plant and plant your plan. It doesn't flow well, but really,
why don't you put that in the other AI and get it to figure it out for you?
To figure it right. Want to keep some humanness to it, as everybody can see. You can spot that a mile away, right?
I thought you can just tell it to do that. Make this sound like a real human and make it into a cool jingle.
There you go.
Try that right now. There you go. We got it. Make it a cool jingle.
In the next podcast, Juan will be repeating this, what AI said.
That's funny. It's true. Well, guys, I thank you. I mean, we hit a lot. I mean, this is a topic that you have breakouts for just for one particular thing and then go into it and we cover it. But for us here, the whole goal was for the people that were unfamiliar. We've gained a ton of new listeners on our podcast recently. So there's folks that we're new to. Is we kind of have like a checklist approach on how you're handling this. If you're choosing between traded, non-GMO, conventional, or the organic platform. You guys said this over and over and over, which was scouting, and not even just scouting now if you move to that program, but check your notes from previous years on your scout, right? Did you have high pressure somewhere else? If you had high pressure of corn rootworm, maybe you want to consider keeping the traits there. Looking into rotation ground, right? Rotated ground being that number one candidate for testing out some of these conventionals. And then the last one there was plan for that early vigor. So, whether you're getting 93% germ beans from us, or whether you want to make sure you good quick head start, we've got the biologicals like, Guard-X for both either for soybeans or corn, that can help ensure that you're protected on some pests but also get your seed up and out. So, well, folks, thanks for tuning in. Go ahead and check out our website, corneliusseed.com, and check out the performance tab. You will see a map for all of our plots from last year and other previous ones as well. But the better part is that you can drill down to your situation, whether it's your county or maybe you're looking for a certain technology or trait. We give you that ability because we're truly serious when we say that we've got the right seed for the right acre, and we want to give you the tools to be able to do that as well. So until the next one.